record. All right, definitely want to make sure that we record this. So again, my name is Dr. Makeba Butler. I'm the Deputy Director of Strategic Initiatives within the Office of Contract Compliance, and I'm responsible for educational programming, outreach efforts, and targeted engagement, ramping that up and making sure that everyone who is a stakeholder has what they need in order to be partners with Cook County's Office of Contract Compliance. I want to go ahead and ask Raffi and Nicole, if each one of you are respectively, would please introduce yourselves and briefly share your individual roles and how the role supports your counterparts department. So Raffi, how do you support contract compliance? Nicole, how do you support the Office of the Chief Procurement Officer?
Thank you, Dr. Butler, for organizing this wonderful webinar today. Hopefully everybody's going to find it informative. And I am definitely looking forward to doing more fireside chats with you, Dr. Butler, and of course with Nicole. As you said, I'm the Chief Procurement Officer at Cook County. And very briefly, our office is responsible for procuring all the goods, services, and construction that are necessary for the operation of Cook County. That does not, now with that said, we purchase for the Office of the President, which includes all the bureaus under Madam President Toni Preckwinkle, but we also purchase for the elected officials of Cook County, the treasurer, the sheriff, the Office of the Chief Judge, the state's attorneys, etc. We do not purchase for the sister agencies of Cook County, such as the hospital system and the Forest Preserve District, because they have their own procurement departments. The one exception there is we do purchase the construction for the Cook County Health and Hospital System. So I say all that because the solicitations we advertise go out with compliance goals, MBE and WBE compliance goals, and that's where Nicole and her great team, fits in with the procurement operation. And so how does OCPO and compliance and Nicole and her team connect? That's one way. It's through putting out solicitations that have MBE and WBE participation goals. But also we work together closely because we're Nicole and her team and OCPO and my team are after the same thing, and it's making our operations more diverse, equitable, and inclusive. And so in procurement we can't do that unless we're talking and liaising closely with Nicole and her team. What are the way? And we always are asking ourselves, what more can we do to make our operation more diverse, equitable, and inclusive? And when I say operation, I'm looking at procurement. And so those are some of the ways that our department works with Nicole and her team. And we can't, in procurement, we can't do what we do unless we're working closely with Nicole and her team.
Thank you. All right, Nicole.
Sorry, I had to find my mouse. Good morning, everyone. My name is Nicole Mandeville. I'm the Director of Contract Compliance at Cook County Government. I work very closely with the Office of the Chief Procurement Officer, Raffi and his team. So my team is responsible for supporting a couple of things at Cook County Government. One, we have 4 respective divisions, the administrative division, which oversees the administration of the program, the MWBE program. We also have the certification team. That team is responsible for certifying MBEs, WBEs, veterans, service-disabled veterans, and persons with disability enterprise for being considered certified in the MWBE program at Cook County Government. And then we also have the compliance division, which works very closely with Raffi's team. That team oversees compliance with the MWBE ordinance and any goal setting that has been written into the contract at the time of solicitation. So actually we do 2 things. Before solicitations go on the street, we review any upcoming solicitations to determine if a goal can be established. And so we do the goal setting there. And then after solicitations come in, we do review solicitations in the documentations on the back end to see if vendors who have submitted paperwork are in compliance or conformance with the MWBE ordinance for any goals that were established at solicitation. And then there is Dr. Butler's division, which is the Strategic Initiatives division, which works to kind of cast a broad net and to make sure that we're being intentional in our outreach and engagement efforts. And so there, we're making sure that we create an educational pathway to make sure that vendors and the small business community overall have a thorough knowledge and understanding of how to engage with the Office of Cook County Contract Compliance, how to connect with the Chief Procurement Officer, and how to just engage in general and know what to expect in this thing of working on contracts with Cook County government. How is that, Dr. Butler? Do you need me more? No. I'm going to stop there. Is that good?
That's good, because some questions will our questions will kind of like segue into like some more broad and very deep answers. So we'll kind of go over into another direction. So, Raffi, many vendors and small business owners are familiar with you, right? Everybody knows the Chief Procurement Officer. Everybody wants to get their hands on the Chief Procurement Officer. We know this. But they don't know you intimately. And by intimate, I mean like exactly like what you do, how you relate to them, really how you can benefit them, right? Without them necessarily needing to touch you and feel you. So I think it would be interesting for you to share a little bit about how you personally support the needs of the vendor community, the needs of the small business community, if you do, when they interact with the Office of the Chief Procurement Officer. So kind of without them being able to actually touch you, but also feeling like you're untouchable, if that makes sense.
No, it makes sense. No, thank you, Makeba, for the question. So, every public procurement office, whether here locally or somewhere nationally or somewhere else in the state, we have a few core pillars that support our programs, and two of those pillars are competitiveness and openness and transparency. And so we strive to have a procurement program that is as competitive as possible. And one of the ways to achieve that is by providing, providing the bidding community and the general public with as much information as we can about procurement at Cook County. I am a firm believer that one of the ways to drive diversity, equity, and inclusion in procurement is not exclusively or solely, but there is a big space for communication. And by communication, I mean providing people with the information they need to make to make strategic business decisions, especially as it relates to our solicitations, bids, RFPs, RFQs. And so, one of the ways we do that is through our homepage. And there is a lot of good content available at our homepage, beginning, of course, with our solicitations when we advertise them. But beyond that, we have our contracts. We have all of our active and inactive contracts available at our homepage, along with corresponding amendments. We have our bid tabulations. We have our buying plan and other information as well. All that information is I believe, is very critical to the business community, especially firms that haven't held a contract with us, because I speak about communications, and I am a firm believer that at the time that we advertise a solicitation, if there is a prior contract, then the incumbent knows the most about the solicitation when we re-advertise the contract. So in other words, if we have a contract right now for a certain service or certain supplies, that contract's due to expire within a couple of months, and so sometime next year we're going to re-advertise advertise the contract for a new contract for a few years. The incumbent knows the most about that contract, as they should, and there's nothing inherently wrong with incumbency. But in terms of knowledge, the incumbent's knowledge is up here the day we advertise a solicitation, and then everybody else, their knowledge is here. And so my challenge is, in terms of driving competitiveness, is attacking what I call this information gap between incumbents and non-incumbents. And so I strive to make sure that the non-incumbents can sharpen their pencils like an incumbent. Because an incumbent knows what line items we use the most, what line items we use the least, when we use the line items, etc. And the incumbents don't have that knowledge. So I strive to provide as much information as I can, so that the incumbents can sharpen their pencils close to, what an incumbent can do. And so and in turn, that drives competitiveness. Because we do want to have competitive process. We do want to see, and by competitive, optimally, we would get at least 3 bids, when we advertise a contract or more. And so we strive to provide, information so we can have a competitive program. And then that also lends into openness and transparency as well. Those are, some of the ways we support the vendor community. But again, all that, the competitiveness, the openness and transparency, yes, I think of incumbents, non-incumbents, but at the end of the day, it also supports diversity, equity, and
Okay, thank you. That was really good. I think that should bring some comfort and some level of clarity to those who are here. And I know there's a couple of questions that came through. We'll try to get to those towards the end. But I want to switch over to Nicole. So Nicole, in your role as the Director of Contract Compliance, and I really want to put a lot of emphasis on this right now, because of course we know that the Chief Procurement Officer and his office basically controls the procurements and makes sure that all of those announcements are put out. And over at the city, the Department of Procurement Services encompasses the Office of Contract Compliance, right? And so there really isn't a need to know the difference of that office and what that office necessarily does. But at the county, we're 2 separate offices. And so we work in tandem together. We work together. We cannot do our jobs without one another, but there's clearly 2 different offices here. And I think that there may be a little bit of a misnomer as it relates to the role of your role within the Office of Contract Compliance, and possibly not even like full understanding. And so right now, many people aren't that familiar with how you support vendors in the small business community. And I would actually extend that to say many people really don't understand your role in and of itself. And so I would love for you to bring light to the weight of your position and how it can be seen as a change agent in the industry, and more importantly in this space, right? And when I say the weight, just what are you tasked with, right? What are you tasked with? And what makes you, for lack of a better word, a heavy hitter? Being a director, I mean, you manage an entire department. You're a department head. So what does that look like, right? And how do you support?
Wow. So you gave me like a whole bunch of questions packed in.
I know. That's a teacher of me. That's a teacher of me.
I see. I was trying to take some notes while you were writing, you were giving the question. So unlike the City of Chicago has Department of Procurement Services, and compliance is embedded within the department. Here at Cook County government, you have the OCPO, which is Raffi is the department head, as the CPO. And then you have the Office of Contract Compliance, in which I'm the Contract Compliance Director as written in the ordinance. So I oversee and lead the OCC team. So like Raffi, I have my own team to manage, and we do support, we do have a function to support OCPO. And so when I think about that, I usually kind of think about these three things. We support the Office of the Chief Procurement Office, essentially pre-award, award, and post-award. Now that's really simple. And you're probably like, what is pre-award? What is award? And what's post-award? And so again, like, I guess, again, I mentioned earlier, we have 4 divisions in the department. We have the administrative team, which is essentially me and all the leadership and anybody who supports the overall operations of the department. But we have the certification team, the compliance team, the strategic initiatives team. So a lot of times when people think about pre-award, post-award, and award, that really is, our compliance division. That's the division at right before a solicitation goes on the street. We review it to see if a goal can be established on a contract, right? So we do have, the MWBE ordinance, and it is our practice to look at each solicitation above a certain threshold to see if we can establish a goal. So I would like to take a moment to say goals are not automatic, because if goals were automatic, that would not be looked upon favorably by the courts, and we wouldn't have a program. So we do each contract on a case-by-case basis. We establish a separate goal on each solicitation before it goes out on the street. Not every solicitation that goes out on the street is able to have a goal. So that's before it goes out on the street. Once the awards are returned back to the office, to CPO's office, we will do a review called a utilization plan review. So there are primes and subs in some instances on the contracts that come through our office. We will review the utilization plans for conformance with the MWBE ordinance here at Cook County. And then on the back end, once the contract is let, then our team reviews and monitors, hence the compliance component. They monitor the contracts for the MWBE utilization, how a vendor is performing on that contract, if M's and W's are performing on that contract, how they're tracking to the goals that were established. So that's one thing. But when you start thinking about the weight of the role and what we do, right? Sometimes I use this analogy of I got the pie. So there's this pie, and the pie has different components, meaning, we have the pie. We've established that through the ordinance that we will establish goals where we seek to be intentional about the dollars that we spend in the community that we support. And so to that end, we're always looking to see where we can get minority owned, women owned, veteran, or persons with disability owned vendors performing on contracts. And so, that is, that in and of itself is a big deal, because there is the theory of that, and then there's the application of that. It's really easy for us to say we want to make sure that every contract has a minority or a woman or a veteran or a person with disability on that contract. The truth of the matter is it's not always possible to have that for a variety of factors, whether it's the vendors don't exist in that space, or we have vendors in that space and they already have reached capacity and they can't take on any more, or there's a gap that we have and we haven't identified a vendor who can provide that service. And then sometimes that capacity is in our vendor database, but the way the vendors' NICS codes and scopes of work, or even sometimes as the scopes of work are written, may not be easily identifiable to a vendor, right? So a NICS code, I'm just going to make up one. So you could have the NICS code 12300, and that's a real generic NICS code. But you should drill down and be more specific. One of the instances that we have seen happen is when we have solicitations on the street, sometimes you can have in the solicitation that we're looking for marketing services. Well, marketing is very broad in general. We may miss people that way if we just look at marketing broad in general, or we may engage vendors to participate on contracts who are certified in marketing, but they're not able to perform the type of marketing that we need. Well, what do you mean by that? Marketing is digital, marketing is multi-channel, marketing is print. It could be all those various things. And so I think that is an example of sometimes how we are able to assist in our office the vendor community in realizing this is how you can perform on a contract by drilling down on your NICS codes. And I believe we already did a session on NICS codes and capability statements. The other thing is somebody has to advocate on behalf of the MWBE community, right? And that's what my role does. Certainly Raffi advocates on behalf of the NW community. But when it comes to the accountability and transparency and reporting on how we look with performance with M's and W's, that kind of falls on my shoulders. And I'm charged with helping our department in support with Raffi coming up with creative ways and being able to connect and reach the community, right? And so we're looking for identifying gaps. Certainly Raffi's team can identify gaps, but they have the brunt of, negotiating contracts, getting contracts on the street, working with user departments. And so one of the things that we do to support that is through the work that you do, Dr. Butler does in the Strategic Engagement Division, is making sure that we identify any gaps that we have, that we're noticing, and tracking the trends and advocating for any type of policy that we think may need to happen with respect to MWBE performance. But more importantly, how do we make sure that we're an equitable and inclusive government? How do we make sure that there is racial parity in our procurement process? And then also at the same time, not about just making a goal or creating a goal, what are we doing to help vendors, establish and create generational wealth? So there's a lot to unpack there. I could keep talking forever about it, but I think that is some of the things that we think about. Those are the things that keep me up at night. What happens to the pie, and given the current environment now, is like, how are we going to make sure that folks are prepared to perform on contracts and be contract ready? See, it's one thing to be certified. That's easy. You could get certified. But once you get certified, you still have to be ready, willing, and able. But then I'm going to say beyond the ready, willing, and able, you have to be capable to perform on a contract with Cook County government. It's so easy to say, hey, I'm Nicole Mandeville, and I'm the owner of Mandeville Consulting, and I want to be on a contract. But am I aware that if I get on the contract with Cook County government, I may not get paid for 180 days? Why? Because sometimes, when the contract is let, work may not start for 90 days. We do work, we send an invoice, somebody in the department has to review that invoice, and so forth and so on. So, so just knowing all of these different steps to the process helps set us up for success. And I would say that's one of the biggest charges that we have in the department. One of the charges that I have is making sure that people have access to information, and that I'm sharing that information that I see in our department and the information that I glean from the procurement office and advocate to the Board of Commissioners on behalf of our communities.
Yeah, I thank you for that. You did say a lot. And I think that the one thing I want to say is we did do a selecting the appropriate NAICS codes, which was a phenomenal workshop that we did. It was along with my two colleagues within the Office of Contract Compliance. That is on our YouTube channel. So please definitely make sure that you take a look at that if you haven't already done that, because as Nicole stated, there's a multitude of reasons why business owners and vendors may not be able to perform on a contract. And one of the ones that we see most commonly is NAICS codes, right? They're not broad enough, or you don't have an understanding of the scope of work that you say you can do and how it relates to the scope of work that needs to be done or performed on the contract. And so there's a lot of different things in there. Given what you said, Nicole, for both you and Raffi, are there any initiatives that your office is working on together that can better enhance and or resource our vendors or our stakeholders as a whole in the upcoming fiscal year? Is there anything that you all may be talking about, working on together, or something that might resource our vendors or the small business community as a whole in the future? Raffi can probably talk about that.
Hi. Well, I could answer this a couple of ways. So first and foremost, Nicole and I are looking at an initiative are to push business towards county business towards small businesses, and so that's something we've started the conversation about already. We have a working group formed, and we're looking forward to doing something sometime in the coming year. From a procurement perspective, there are some things that we're already doing to make our operation more, let's say, customer friendly, so to speak, that I'd like to highlight, even though it goes beyond maybe the scope of the question. And one of the things we did this year already was we piloted what's called a request for a statement of interest. So those of you listening who are familiar with Illinois Department of Transportation and Illinois Tollway Authority, they, in lieu of doing an RFQ, they do a request for a statement of interest. And it's a streamlined version of an RFQ. And as you may know, we do a lot of our RFQs here, and often, and in the traditional way, we're asking everyone to submit their qualification package. That qualification package can get very lengthy, and it takes a lot of time and resources. We're asking firms to invest a lot of time and resources to submit their qualification package to us. And so that can be a challenge or a barrier to pursuing contract opportunities with the county. So what we did is we followed the model from Illinois, from IDOT, Illinois Department of Transportation. And so in lieu of doing an RFQ up front, we asked for a statement of interest, or what's also called a letter of interest. So instead of asking for your full qualification up front, we asked you to submit to us a 4 or 5 page document. And then we review that, and then we shortlist, and then from the shortlist firms, we ask for a full-blown qualification package. As I said, we piloted this project already. It's for our Department of Transportation and Highways. It was a good, successful project. We're rolling it out for more Department of Transportation and Highways projects. And if the success continues, then we look forward in 2024 to rolling out the RSI for more RFQs outside the realm of construction and services. So and again, that's an initiative to help make our program more streamlined and especially more customer friendly. Another initiative we're working on, and again, we hope to roll it out in 2024, is a long overdue project where we're digitizing our economic disclosure statement and affidavit. As many of you know, whenever we advertise a solicitation, in addition to the compliance goals, we also have required forms, et cetera, that have to be submitted. And one of those is the very lengthy economic disclosure statement and affidavit. So what we're doing is we're digitizing that form, and hopefully it's going to streamline that form, completion of that form and that whole process. And we look forward to rolling that out sometime in 2024. And then, something else that we do already to help make our program more user-friendly, You can submit bids, proposals, qualification packages to us electronically, which is a big help. You don't have to come down physically to our offices now at 161 North Clark on the 23rd floor and bring down your encyclopedia and drop it in the bid box. You can do it all from the comfort of your home electronically, and that's something that we've been doing and are continuing to do. So those are some of the things we're doing in the OCPO, Dr. Butler, to make our program here more approachable, more streamlined, and more user friendly.
Thanks, Raffi. Nicole, so before Nicole speaks, I do want to say this is within the Office of Contract Compliance. So because that's the division that I manage within the OCC, one of the very strong initiatives that we are focusing on in the upcoming fiscal year is really honing in on quality educational programming that speaks to very specific, and I know Nicole mentioned earlier about gaps and being able to identify those gaps within the market, identifying what vendors in the small business community is actually saying they need more education on. As an educator, the one thing that I do know is that people don't move because they don't know what to do. Right? When they don't know what to do, they don't do anything. And so one of the visions that Nicole had early on was to create very strong educational programming and create something in place for our vendors so that the excuse can never be, we don't know what to do, or why can't we do this, or why isn't this happening, or I don't know how to do this. Like, we're answering those questions now. That's the goal within the Office of within the Strategic Initiatives Division of the Office of Contract Compliance. So I know we have a job order contracting workshop that's going to be next year. We have subcontracting 101 that's going to be going on next year. We have professional attestation workshop that's going to be put on. So we're looking more into not just those surface level workshops of, how to grow your business, right? Everybody, that is just so multi-layered, to where now, because our office is so pinpointed on how to get our vendors contract ready, procurement ready, compliance ready, right? That we have to focus our educational programming and our attention on more targeted type educational programming. And so be on the lookout for surveys that may come asking you, what is it that you need, and different things like that, so that we can think of some type of strategic response and plan to get that type of educational programming out to you. So I wanted to say that in response to the OCC question, even though it definitely was not asked to me. It was asked to Nicole, but I was speaking on behalf of Nicole. So Nicole, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Dr. Butler. That's less words I have to say. But yeah, just to kind of echo the sentiment, we really have been, it has been my desire to make sure that the strategic outreach and engagement that we do is very intentional, that it's not service level outreach. And that there are certain things that come up over and over again in the process, whether it's from certification, whether it's from compliance, whether it's once they get to procurement, that we have noticed. And so one of the ways that we feel like we can be to provide assistance, if you will, and to add tools to your toolkit, is to show you how to do it. Or we can't do it for you, but we definitely can get some experts around the table on a Zoom or a Teams call, and we can let you ask questions, and we can share those things that we see. And so this is why it's really keenly important that we are being intentional about the topics that we share with the vendor community overall. This is why we want you to focus on your NAICS codes and really thinking strategically about your NAICS codes, and not just choosing a general code, but the drilling down and knowing the reason why. We are working with the CPO's office, as Raffi mentioned, on a small business initiative. But there are a few other things that I'd like to throw out there that it's on my dream chart of things that I would like to see have happen in the future. And one is actually somebody put it in the chat. Do we accept WBANK certification? And we currently do not accept WBANK certification, but we do have a reciprocity agreement with the city of Chicago. And it is my desire to do something similar to that with a few other entities in the Chicago market. But the caveat is you still have to be anybody that we accept, you still have to meet the general requirements for the ordinance here at Cook County. You must be in Cook County and the 6-county area, or what we call the county marketplace. So it's Cook and the Collar counties. Again, we have reciprocity with the city of Chicago, and we are looking, I'm exploring us doing a certification with some type of certification, whether it's reciprocity or some form of a shortened application process with the Women's Business Development Center, which certifies for WBANK, and then CMSDC, which certifies for the National Minority Supplier Development Council. Again, it's a desire. I don't know if we can get there, get across, get the goal over the post. But as a desire, as a way to how do we grow the vendor pool, but making sure that we have the right types of businesses who can perform on Cook County contracts and perform the services that we need. It doesn't do us any good to have 100 of the same kind of vendor. So we are being intentional in the upcoming year to make sure in those areas where we have identified gaps, which were called out in our disparity study, that we identify those vendors and work with community partners and organizations to help us identify those areas in which we continually do not see vendors, and to see if we can identify that and bring those types of vendors into our vendor pool. I think that's the biggest thing. The biggest thing, besides finding new ways to remove barriers for vendors to remove barriers to get vendors performing on contracts, certified with us. And then lastly, I just lost my thought. You know what's going to happen. So the biggest thing really is just removing barriers to our process, making sure that they are procurement ready, make sure that they understand the process and can perform on the contracts with us here at Cook County government. And then also just making sure that they have the tools that they need to be able to navigate our process. And then I think the other thing is really is making sure that if we can do some type of target markets where we're targeting, where we know for sure that we have a significant pool of vendors in a particular industry, where we're able to call that out aside. And then at the same time, making sure that we can get, we're really trying to hope to get contracts in the hands of what our communities look like. And so this is something, some of the things that we're working on in the upcoming year.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Also, I'll add to that. Also, we have a very strong commitment to veterans. And I personally am a veteran, and Nicole is a veteran as well. And so we are committed to some degree to strongly to growing our veteran pool of certified vendors, because that's a challenged area for us in terms of certification and contracts and procurement opportunities, because you can't push that needle if you don't have anyone in there. And so we're brainstorming. I'm working with the certification deputy to develop some sort of initiative that can really push that needle quickly and strongly to identify procurement ready. That's the goal. That's the key. Procurement ready veteran-owned businesses where we can, start putting goals in those contracts for that. So I'm going to stop what I have to say now. We only have about 10 minutes left, and I would like to get to a couple of questions. So I'm going to go back through. I know Craig Williams asked, and I think Nicole talked about this a little bit, Craig, so I'm not sure if you need any more expounding, but Craig did ask Raffi to expound on being procurement ready. He was wanting your individual understanding of it, Raffi, and then maybe if you can explain maybe one typical example, if that makes sense. So I don't know if you have anything else to add to what Nicole had already said about the procurement readiness piece.
Yeah, just to add to what Nicole said, procurement, ready for me means, when we put out a solicitation, we are awarding not just, to the lowest bidder, but we're awarding to the lowest responsible and responsive bidder. And responsibility by our codes gets to the budgetary and operational capacity of the bidder to be able to provide the services we need at the time that we need them. And so that's from a procurement perspective, that's what we're looking for too. It's not just that can you provide the goods or services at the price, but do you have that operational and budgetary capacity, therefore the experience to provide the services that we're seeking in that solicitation. And that's what, again, from a procurement, perspective, that's what we're getting at there with that phrase.
Thank you, Raffi.
I want to add one note to what Raffi said about being procurement ready. I'd also like to highlight for people that also being procurement ready is not getting certified when there's a solicitation. You need to already be certified. You can't get on a solicitation and then call contract compliance and say, I need you to rush me through the process so I can get on a contract. It doesn't work that way. You will set yourself up for failure every time. And so I cannot impress upon it to you at all, if at all, to say you need to be certified at the time of solicitation. Otherwise, you could be found non-responsive. And you also are not thinking about, you're not the only person in process. There may be 400 to 500 to 600 to 700 other vendors in line ahead of you. So when you're thinking about looking at a solicitation, make sure you've already taken care of that process, because we can't circumvent our process just because you're trying to be in process with Raffi.
And I will supplement to what Nicole just said. For procurement, also to be procurement ready means you're registered with the OCPO, and that's critical, because to be able to submit a bid or a proposal or a qualification package to us, you have to be registered with procurement at Cook County. The critical thing here to keep in mind is the procurement's vendor registration database is completely and wholly separate from the MBEWB directory that Nicole, manages and operates. So it is vital that if you're interested in being a prime with Cook County and bidding as a prime, then you have to be registered with procurement. It's an easy process. You go to our homepage, there's a link for vendor registration, and you just follow the prompts and you'll be registered with us.
Awesome, thank you. Let's see. Are there any rules in place to deal with prime contractors who pay their subs slow or no payment from them?
State that one more time, Dr. Butler.
Yep. Are there rules in place to deal with prime contractors who pay their subs slow? Because that's a compliance issue, I'm assuming, or no payment from them.
So there is a process in place. So it works like this, and Raffi can correct me if I'm wrong. When primes get paid, they are required by law to pay subs in a certain time frame. in our system, the BDG system, once a prime is paid, the prime is supposed to verify that they've been paid. And then in turn, the sub is supposed to verify that they've been paid. And so if there is a payment issue, I need you to do the following. If there's a payment issue and you're a sub on a contract with a prime, that you don't call me and you don't call Raffi. There is a process. We're the last, like, don't call us first because we're going to ask 10 other people just to get the answer. So if you have a payment issue, you're a sub on a contract, start first with the compliance officer. And actually, the Office of Contract Compliance has a vendor complaint form. It's in the system. So if you're registered in B2G, if you have an issue with the prime, then we need you to go into the system, fill out that form, let us know what contract you're on, what payment you haven't been made, that hasn't been made. But first, if you have a payment issue, you need to start first with the prime before you come to Cook County, because the contract is between us and the prime, not us and the sub. So I need to reinforce, like, if you're a sub on a contract, you don't come to Cook County first, you go to the prime first. That's the first question we're going to ask you. If there's a need for us to get involved, then you can make the user department that you're supporting aware that you're having an issue with the prime, and then we can get in, we can engage everyone. And from there, and then we'll, like, now, if it gets to the point where we're not getting the resolve that we need, then that becomes a time when Raffi and I become involved. But we do have a formalized vendor complaint process. That complaint process does not mean call every department head at Cook County government. It means please follow the process. We have one that is established. There's a formalized vendor complaint process. It's digital. It's easier for us to do it digitally because then that means you're not calling around getting voicemails, that there's a process that's documented. And unfortunately, you have to document it. It can't be hearsay or anything like that. You have to document the process for us.
Awesome. We got like 4 minutes and these questions keep coming in. So we're gonna have to break it off. I'm so sorry, y'all. We have a couple more questions. We do have time for a couple more questions, but I knew this was gonna happen. So that's why we're working on bringing them to you, having more of these fireside chats. So I'm looking through the questions. Could you please briefly describe how a firm would become certified? So Michelle, on our YouTube channel, there is a workshop that I did with the Deputy of Certification, and we did an entire workshop on how to become certified with Cook County. So go to our YouTube channel, and you'll actually be able to, when I send out the follow-up email, it'll have a link to our YouTube channel, and you can look at all the videos from there. So that'll give you all the information for that. We already asked about this. Is Cook County residency a requirement for Cook County certification? Your business, yes. Or it's within the collar counties, right, Nicole? For Cook County certification within the collar counties?
You have to be certified. Your business has to be Cook in the collars.
Yeah. So your business has to be certified, has to be residents are registered within the 6 collar counties. And don't ask me what those collar counties are, because I can always leave out one. But Cook and 5 other ones. Okay. Let me see. Curious why Cook. Yeah, she's already talked about that. Does all procurement go through an RFQ and contract, or are there other ways to do business with Cook County? Raffi, all of them go through procurement right now, right? Through an RFQ.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that, Dr. Butler?
Yep. Does all procurement go through an RFQ and contract, or are there other ways to do business with Cook County?
No. We use there are primarily three types of solicitations. An IFB, or invitation for bids, where the award is to the lowest responsive bidder. So it's primarily, but not exclusively, price driven. Then we have an RFP, request for proposals, and an RFQ, request for qualifications. And those are where we evaluate the proposals or qualification packages we received, and we evaluate them based on the evaluation criteria that was published in the RFP or RFQ. So those are the three types of solicitations primarily.
Great. Thank you so much. All right, you all. So we're at 11:59. I apologize if I did not get to your question, but please understand that we're really excited for the response that we got with this very first fireside chat. We definitely will, after speaking with Nicole and Raffi, everybody agrees that this is something that we want to do for now, quarterly. It could be, more commonly than that, more frequently than that. But right now we'll start at a quarterly piece. And so we'll look at the first one coming up in the fiscal year 2024. But Raffi, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Dr. Butler. Just one closing thought from me, because I'm looking at the chat too. If you haven't already, please, I cannot stress enough, register with the OCPO. There was a question in the chat about how someone can learn about upcoming opportunities. Registering with the OCPO is a great way to do it, because when you go through the registration process, you'll identify what NAICS codes you're interested in. And then when we advertise a solicitation that corresponds with one of your NAICS codes, you're going to get an automatic email from us the morning we advertise a solicitation in your area of interest. It's the best way for you to learn about upcoming opportunities. The other way to do it too, but it's more from a forecasting perspective, we have our buying plan. Within the next couple of months, we're going to be releasing our 2024 buying plan, and that gives the forecast of anticipated procurement opportunities that we will be advertising during fiscal year 2024. So I can't stress enough the importance of registering with the OCPO. And again, keep in mind, our database is wholly separate from Nicole's MBE, WBE directory. So register with procurement. It's a quick process. You'll be able to get notifications on bids. You'll be able to submit bids and proposals to us as well. You'll also be able to see the list of firms that have downloaded a solicitation you're interested in. So 3 great reasons to register with the OCPO. And yes, you don't have to be, I'm sorry, there was one more question, Dr. Butler. You don't have to be in state to register with the OCPO.
Perfect. All right, you all, from the looks of everything, this was a great session, very informative. I'm so glad that you all got value out of it. We'll definitely, please stay connected. Listen, if there's a way for you to be on my email list so that you can get our bulletins for OCC, if you want to be added to that email list and you're not added to it already, just respond to the email that I sent out to you, because that's coming from compliance outreach, and I can look at that. So send me back your email. I know a lot of you all came from procurement, but please, if you want to be added to ours as well, go ahead and send me your email information and I'll add you to our email list as well. All right. Thank you all so much for being here. Raffi and Nicole, you all are awesome. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. You guys have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.